What about PJD Amenco?
Yeah, close enough.
PJ. Thanks for waiting.
Thank you for your endurance.
Please introduce yourself.
My name is PJ D'Amico, which means friend in Italian, amico. I'm the executive director of the Buck Foundation. We are a foundation in Denver which over the last 5 years has made a strategic decision to shift our funding from direct service to advocacy. Because what we recognize is that in a city of Denver that has at least 2,000 chronically homeless people on the street, that the service solution is no longer adequate. Certainly I appreciate more than anyone the work of the city to invest $40 million into homeless support. But to suggest with your back to the unauthorized encampments all over our city that it's working is disingenuous. And I think what I've become clear about, it's hard to trust anyone that suggests that the service model is adequate when they're not also prepared to stand for the basic human rights of our people on the streets. And so I think what's really important, and to kind of speak particularly to some of the things that have been raised, this is not the right bill. This is a bill of last resort. Right? We live in a society that is expected to protect inalienable rights, which are no longer being protected. And so certainly, if we lived in a world where service was being adequate and dignity was being protected, then I certainly would hope that we wouldn't have to have this bill. And so we're really starting with a beginner's mind at ground zero. Last thing I would just say is this. I had the privilege and burden of being in Resurrection Village when it was raised by 40 police officers, by the way, at 11 o'clock at night. And so there were at least 20 folks ready to sleep, lay down, and have these things called tents, which really in the middle of winter are useful. And as, in fact, it was Commander Lopez, as he raised it with 20 police officers and arrested a really dangerous 5'2" white woman, he said, if you have a problem with this, file a complaint tomorrow. And so I just want to really acknowledge and qualify from a privileged location that we're terrifying people on our streets in the city of Denver and throughout the state. And that, you know, cities like LA, San Francisco, Seattle, Portland, all of which I visited, are unfortunately having to declare fundamental states of emergency. And so the last thing I would just say is because of our cities are not doing this, I think it really is incumbent on the state to have this conversation. And so please pass some bill so that the people of the state can have an authentic and deep conversation about the crisis of homelessness that is not something I'm interested in having I'm really tired of having to tell my daughters why there are dog parks in Denver that protect the rights of the dogs, but that I can't really explain to them why we're not protecting the rights of human beings. I'm really exhausted from having that conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, BJ, for those comments and remarks. Questions?